There's a strange devotion to political brand in America. We work incredibly hard in each election cycle to justify the actions of candidates either in their behaviors or their policies that in our own life or thinking we would never allow ourselves to embrace. This happens for both Republican and Democrat, and seems to be based upon the idea that fear is the only pragmatic place to decide leadership from. Each side defends their political candidates, not because they think the accusations or the stated policy positions of a person are mischaracterized or false, but because they cannot bring themselves to vote for the other brand. If you are a Republican, voting for a Democrat is sacrilege. And if you are a Democrat even acknowledging that a Republican has the right to be alive, that becomes grounds for some kind of Hunger Games style execution. This partisanship has grown more evident in the last 20 years and was put on steroids in this Donald Trump era. But the seeds of this cancerous weed have been germinating for a very long time. I assume that if a list of Democratic Party candidates were put forth, most people would acknowledge that their candidates were not the liberal heroes they had hoped or projected for. I have a feeling that there were disappointments over the nominations of Michael Dukakis, Al Gore, or Joe Biden, and there were probably frustrations with the positions that Bill Clinton took on NAFTA, or compromising on health care, or Barack Obama escalating the foreign wars instead of ending them. However, since my context is from someone on the more conservative side of the aisle, my anecdotes will have to suffice. The Republican Party has spent most of the late 20th and early 21st centuries finding ways to benefit the party, looking the voting public in the eye, and lying to them about what they actually think, in order to win elections. And the public jumped through a myriad of hoops in order to justify the character flaws or antithetical policies of these Republican brand ambassadors in order to make sure that the other person does not win. We have our media organs on the right, who during the slower time of the perpetual election cycle in America, harp upon the failings of the Speaker of the House or the Congress or the President, but as November draws near, set down their grievances to shrill for the brand. For the sake of ease and understanding, take a look at the presidency from the perspective of the conservative. Since I've been able to vote, I've been told that these are the best possible, rock-ribbed conservative candidates. George H.W. Bush, Bob Dole, George W. Bush, John McCain, Mitt Romney, Donald Trump. If you allow yourself even one moment of intellectual honesty, not a single one of those people would characterize what conservatives claim the definition of conservatism is. Most of us on the ground who have been advocating for a more right-leaning world would claim a definition that includes smaller, less intrusive government, protected borders, decency of citizen, sound money and budgets, and the presidency's role of defending the Constitution as the enumerated rights of the people. In honesty, did any of those people, win or lose, purport, or turn out to have any of the aforementioned values? Did the scope and scale of government get smaller? Did budgets shrink or get under control? Did the presidents defend the Constitution? Or just the government? Any intellectually honest person would have to admit that we as a voting group were instead led to the proverbial voting slaughterhouse, to assure that the people in charge could keep grinding away at the soul of our country. Brand is a powerful thing. As a consumer-based society, we are trained from an early age that devotion to brand is important. Disney, Apple, Budweiser, Levi's, and many others are all recognized as a part of the American aesthetic, and we buy into the frenzy that requires their embrace. So is it any wonder that we do the same things with our politics? It has become a tiresome thing to defend the brand. These men and women who purport to be our pseudo-saviors and defenders of democracy are more cardboard than they are actuators. And yet we are asked time and time again to defend their nothingness, or worse, their somethingness of indefensible actions. 2024 seems to be changing things for many of us. The blinders that have long shielded our eyes or by force turned our heads to look away from the embarrassment of our candidates or brands has for a slight moment seemed to lose its grip upon a good portion of the population. The Kennedy campaign is giving millions of people permission to do something new and unique in American politics. It's allowed many of us to say that despite the stacked evidence that America is only able to manage 2 people running for president per cycle, that we demand better. Government should be good if it is to be anything at all. So we should decide as a people that this strange theater where we ignore the disappointments we have with a candidate for the sake of not letting the bad guy win is why we have the hollowed-out version of government we do. This election, I'm not giving a pass for brand loyalty. I'll not defend or justify the actions, indiscretions, rudeness, indefensible positions, legal battles, or any other things I'm told I have to set aside my values for the betterment of the party and thus, tangentially, the country. I owe no party any loyalty. I owe no person placed in the seat of the brand head any loyalty. I owe my country and the men and women who made it a free republic more than voting for someone I have been convinced by the media I like a little more than the other person. We have a chance to upend the whole damned mess in this election. The people who are running as their brand's ambassadors this year are the same two people who oversaw locking the country down, spending trillions of dollars of borrowed money to ensure their donor class was satisfied, and that now your milk would be $8 a gallon. They are the ones that continue to meddle around the globe in affairs and wars and coups that we should have no part in. These are the same two brand ambassadors that, despite their rhetoric, failed to pardon people like Edward Snowden and Julian Assange, or release the government's files on JFK or 9/11. They are the same ones who demonstrate daily their mental incapacity and their bully tactics. They degrade the idea of representative republicanism and democracy. They force us to suspend nearly everything we believe in, all because of the capacity by their media and their parties to vilify the other guy and strike terror into the hearts of the average voter that the world will be demonstrably more horrid under Joe Biden or a closeted version of the Third Reich under Trump. Their brand advocates get in line and parrot the fear-mongering, and the rest of us are the conscripted victims of their devotion. If one is honest and did some deeper thinking, they would realize that Donald Trump is presented as the opposite of Joe Biden in relationship to how he is going to handle things when he is in charge, the rhetoric he uses, or the people that surround him. And yet the outcomes for the last 8 years are exactly the same. Their debt expenditures are almost equal. The whistleblowers remain in jail and seemingly near death. There's no discernible difference in the outcome of the size and scope of government with either of the brand aids. I've picked a horse for this race, and the task seems monumental, but I'd have no greater political regret in my life than if I suspended my intellectual honesty and went back to the voting feedlot to await my eventual slaughter. Many more of us can do it too. It doesn't take even a hard look to realize we've been played. We can elevate the individual and their rights again, but it's going to take ourselves, giving ourselves the permission to climb the self-imposed stockyard fence and set out for better pastures.